self-organized.
Okay, first of all, can you tell me what is the project that you're working on for Combe Haven?
Well, Combe Haven is the current campaign to protect a beautiful wildlife area in between Hastings and Bexhill from a needless, costly and incredibly destructive road, which isn't going to solve any transport problem at all. It's only going to basically enable a whole load of countryside to be opened up for development for new houses and industrial estates. Now, I'm actually a business person. I run a business in Brighton. I'm generally in favour of affordable spaces for business. Obviously also have a home. I really enjoy living in a house, and I like the idea that people can, live in homes affordably, etc., etc.
Yeah.
But there are places for these things, and Combe Haven is not an appropriate place to put industrial units or homes.
Okay, that's coming in there. You said it's not appropriate. Why is it not appropriate?
It's just an incredibly beautiful area of countryside. That's sort of number one reason. The other reason is that the road is actually kind of self-fulfilling. It will suck jobs, homes, businesses out of Hastings and dump them out in the countryside where they cannot then be accessed by, where people won't be able to get to and from them by sustainable transport, by buses, by cycling, because the distances just start to spread out. You create a road-dependent development by carving off a hunk of countryside and then moving the town out to the countryside. That kills the town. It also kills sustainability.
Mm-hmm. Okay, and can you tell me about the background of how things have been going so far, the history of the project and the campaign?
Yeah, this road has been spoken about for about 20 years, and all the way through the 90s there was a big campaign against it. There was a group called the Hastings Alliance, which was a whole coalition of all the big national environmental organisations and a whole load of local people ranging from conservationists to historians, and all sorts of people came together to say this is a really bad idea. Now, the original plan was to bypass Hastings altogether, and that was shelved, and now basically they're doing this kind of road on the cheap where they've reduced it and basically meant that it's not a bypass. It's not really any useful road at all. The only thing it's going to do, as we've said, is to open up new development land.
How much has the project cost so far then to develop this road?
So far, I don't know, but the budget is 96 million or something, close to £100 million, and I think about 56 million is apparently coming from the government, but we've heard that they haven't actually signed the cheque yet. So the county council's moving ahead with clearing this area, and they don't yet even know whether definitely the government's going to give them the money.
They've just got like an IOU.
Yes.
Basically, yeah.
And the interesting bit is there's clearly divisions even within government between the Department of Transport, who fairly clearly did not support this road. As I say, the Department of Transport dropped plans to build it themselves 10 years ago. It was going to be built by the national government as a complete bypass of Hastings. Now it's a county council scheme. The government seems to have given this money because the Treasury decided to give the money, not the Department of Transport. Now, goodness knows why. This is George Osborne with his plan B to for an fiscal stimulus, invest in infrastructure, invest in more in regional airports, in roads, in fracking, and it is very definitely Osborne investing in infrastructure of a kind that is utterly unsustainable. If he really wanted to invest in sustainable infrastructure, he'd be insulating people's homes, not building bloody road schemes. So it's fairly clear that this is a Treasury-led road scheme, and it's not supported by the Department of Transport. It's not supported by Norman Baker, the Lib Dem Minister for Local Transport. So all of this is potentially playing on those tensions within government, as well as playing on the fact that it's the county council who have now got the financial risk. They originally estimated that risk as that there would be there was a 1 in 6 chance of protests happening. Well, it's happened. They budgeted 200 grand for protest. They've had to go back to a closed meeting and get an extra 15 million at a time when they are when they're making 70 million worth of overall cuts to the council's budget. That's how risky this project is.
Okay, so obviously this road is quite long. Why has the campaign to protest this road focused on Combe Haven specifically? What's special about that particular area out of all the countryside?
Well, that's the thing. The road isn't actually very long at all. It's 5 kilometres, 3.5 miles.
For that much money?
This road is going to cost £20 million per kilometre. It's the most hideous waste of money.
Yeah.
At a time when the children's services are being cut by 20 million or thereabouts, adult social care being cut by 20 million or thereabouts, and then they're blowing basically that amount of money. The county council's part of it is basically costing exactly what they've saved in adult social care and children's services.
Okay.
So when they can't turn up at somebody's house with Meals on Wheels, or they can't put your gran into a rest home, or they can't send a nurse out to see how your ailing aunt is doing, that's because they've tarmacked an area of countryside that's basically just one valley.
So why are they
in order to do that?
Or why are they making this 5 kilometre road and investing all this money in it? What's the reason?
Because they get to sell the land to developers. It's as simple as that. But this is what's interesting. People in the area, people in the area are divided. There are some people in the area who are very much in support of the protest and have been taking food down, and grannies getting in the way and taking all these protest action. It's been fantastic. But people in the area who support the road, they think it's about relieving congestion on the main road running parallel to the coast to the west of Hastings. It won't do that. The council isn't even claiming that it's particularly going to do that. They're mostly claiming that it's going to bring regeneration, basically carving off a hunk of countryside so that they can sell off that open greenfield land to developers and make money from that. That's what's in it for the council.
But then that's not going to happen. If they're going to sell the land and they're going to develop it, but that's not going to regenerate Hastings and Bexhill.
Why not?
Because you'll get a whole load of industrial units there that businesses from the town centres will relocate to. They'll be out of town shopping. More people will be driving out of Hastings to go and see these places. Plus, all your passing trade through the centre, through Hastings. People driving through Hastings from the west and maybe going further to the east. At the moment, they pass along the seafront. They go and they see historic Hastings. They have fish and chips on the beach or something. They won't do that if there's a way over the top of Hastings. It's not going to save them journey time because they end up hitting the same snarl up on the eastern side of Hastings as what they would have if they'd gone the other way. So it's not going to save them time, but it's going to stop all that passing trade going through the centre of Hastings. And people will, even people now that are generally in favour of the road because they've been sold this story of it being good for the economy locally, they'll realise that it's not actually true. That the town itself will suffer. And if they've got all this money to spend on Hastings, spend it on rejuvenating the town centre, spend it on the seafront, spend it on rebuilding the pier. These are the things that tourists like. These are the things that bring holiday makers to the town. And then they spend money and the economy grows. But cheap industrial space on the outskirts of the town, which is going to bring firms out of the town, is not going to solve the problem. That's just going to make it worse.
Right.
The Treasury has long had this myth that roads are good for the economy, and there's absolutely not a shred of evidence for it. There was only a fortnight ago a group of the 20-something of the top transport academics in Britain wrote to the Transport Secretary to say, this is a nonsense that roads are good for the economy. It's absolutely clear. All the evidence says is that roads can suck economic life out of a town as easily as they can bring it in. And this is one of those roads that will doubtless suck the economic life out of Hastings. It might mean that the East Sussex County Council gets to make money by selling off the land to developers, but that is not good for the economy of Hastings, not one little bit.
This is fascinating stuff. Now, you've talked about protests going on in the Combe Haven area. Can you tell me more about what's been happening and what's currently happening there?
Yeah, the campaign got off to a very kind of sudden start just before Christmas, because suddenly the council got the land, and I think they signed the contract on the Friday, and by the Monday they were already out there cutting trees down, clearing. Yeah, they just went it straight away. So of course, in a couple of days after Combe Haven defenders realised what was going on, suddenly they just pulled in everyone that they could, and we had kind of pitched battles with the tree surgeons, chainsaw gang, and security, bailiffs, everything, and then over Christmas, more permanent camps were developed. There was a window of opportunity around Christmas time because not much was, people were off basically between Christmas and New Year, so there was no actual logging or anything going on. But that gave us all the opportunity to build camps. We built 3 altogether on various sections of the route, and then one by one the camps were basically invaded by security guards and bailiffs, and there were some police involved as well, but to be honest, the police presence has been reasonably kind of calm and not too over the top, and the bailiffs have been doing all the work with the security guards. So one by one, these camps were dismantled, and the occupiers were either arrested or just kind of kicked out, and then every time that's happened, new camps have popped up somewhere else along the route. So and every time they have to evict a camp, it takes them a day or 2, maybe 3, to evict it, which delays their actions for a few more days. Now, the crucial thing is that all the clearance work has to be finished by the end of February, and that's on Thursday, the last day of February. So they're now racing against the clock to finish the clearing work before the end of Thursday, and they've still got quite a lot to do. So now really the main aim is to delay that work past Thursday so that they can't do any more work. The nesting season starts and they're not allowed to mess with any hedgerows or trees, and then that means they also can't then start actually doing groundwork and laying foundations for the road until after the nesting season is finished in the autumn, and then of course we've got the winter, so the whole project could be delayed by 9 months if we can keep them going past Thursday.
But would that really make a difference, just delaying them by that 9 months? I mean, is it just going to keep going? What happens after that?
Well, this comes back to that whole point about the financial risk. No, if they've got to go back and start all over again, they've got to cancel. They've got to pay a whole load of compensation to contractors who have been contracted to do work this summer, and who will then sort of say, well, we now can't do the work that you contracted us to do. We've kind of reserved the time. Who knows what kind of knock-on penalties that's got? Because we don't know what exactly is in the contracts. But if they've got to then compensate people who've been hired to build, hired to do security, hired to do all these things, and they then can't do it because the vegetation can't be cut down because the bird nesting season. They then can't do the drainage works because this is a floodplain. A few weeks ago, this whole area was completely flooded, and therefore they've got to do a whole load of drainage works, and they've got to get that done before the end of the summer before it starts flooding again. So the whole thing could knock on by a whole year, and goodness knows what that costs them in compensation. And basically, as I say, this is the county council that's bearing these financial risks. It's not like that sort of the roads programme of the 1990s when it was basically a national government road programme. This risk is being borne by a county council, and it's not got infinitely deep pockets.
So, if I understand you correctly, you're saying that if you're able to stop the groundworks by Thursday, was it? If you can stop it by then,
Vegetation clearance by
you
Thursday.
may actually completely stop the whole project.
It is possible. We just don't know how on a knife edge this might be, with all the stuff about contracts, compensation clauses, the fact that we know that there's internal tensions between government ministers, between Treasury ministers and George Osborne's Treasury and Norman Baker as a Lib Dem junior minister in the Department of Transport have obviously got different views about this road. Now, anything that plays on those tensions potentially could stop this scheme. So it's utterly worth getting down there. Anyone listening to this broadcast, you can get down there any time between this time and between now and next Thursday. Get down there.
Okay, you mentioned the government. I mean, what are the national implications of what's going on in Combe Haven Valley?
Well, this is the first of one of 190 schemes that have been given the green light by the Chancellor. This is the worst possible way to invest in infrastructure in this country. We need new roads like a hole in the head. We've got massive traffic congestion issues. We've got real global warming targets that we're now legally obliged to meet, which is fantastic. We should have these legally binding targets. But what are we doing if we then invest all the infrastructure money in new roads? We know that they don't do anything apart from encourage more traffic, and we can't cope with more traffic in this country. We need other infrastructure. We need to invest in railways, not just building them, but making them affordable. We need more locally based investment in bicycle routes, local cycle lanes, walking routes. We need to get children to walk to school again, cycle to school. That will stop the obesity problems. Now, children don't walk to school anymore because their parents are too frightened that they might get knocked over by a car on the way to school.
Right.
So, of course, they drive their kids to school, which makes other parents even more frightened that their kids are going to get knocked over.
Perpetuating cycle.
So, encourage children to walk to school, encourage more cars off the road, and you'll get a virtuous cycle where there are fewer cars, more people feel safe cycling, more people feel safe walking, less people have asthma, the National Health Service saves money, everyone's happier, healthier.
So what you're saying is this is really an example of the national debates going on, and you're offering a potential solution to such problems.
Yes.
This completely epitomises a much wider debate. It's not. This is why this protest is not just about Hastings. It is about which direction do we go in? What kind of an economy do we want? Do we want a great car economy where development spreads further and further out into the countryside, where it's therefore harder and harder to get to by walking, cycling, or by public transport, and therefore we become increasingly car dependent, more obese, more carbon emitting society? Or do we want to localise our economy, to kind of to concentrate our economic activity in local communities, in places like Hastings that could just be really good, strong local communities with strong local roots where people spend their money in the local economy, where your homes, your businesses, your work are relatively close together, so it's easy to walk and cycle and get there, instead of scattering it all over the damn countryside. What kind of economy is that?
Right. Now, if anyone who's listening would like to find out more information or potentially get involved, what resources do you have out there for them to check out?
The best thing is for them to Google Combe Haven Defenders.
Okay.
And that, at the moment, is the main group on the ground resisting this road. There are others. There's the what's it called? The battle.
The Battle of Hastings.
No, the Bexhill.
Yes.
Yes,
sorry.
Link Road Resistance. That's it. Bexhill Link Road Resistance.
Okay.
That's another group with completely different, coming from a completely different angle. They believe that this Combe Haven Valley was the site of the Battle of Hastings.
Okay.
And that's that's a pretty big deal. If they're right, and they've got a lot of evidence to back up their claim.
Mm-hmm.
If they're right, that means we're just about to trash the most important battle site in the whole of England.
But isn't there a place called Battle that's famous for such a place?
There is, and there's not a lot of evidence that the battle was actually a battle. So
Okay.
This is a kind of fight that's going on.
So it could be a huge historical discovery.
It could be a huge discovery. Yeah,
Okay.
It could be major.
As I understand it, the road builders, they're required to do sort of all these environmental impact assessments, including kind of documenting the biodiversity and flooding risks and all the rest of it. And they're supposed to do an archaeological survey, and they did a little token gesture one, as far as I understand it. We've no idea what we might be about to trash here.
Okay.
So the other resources then is there's the Blinker Bexhill Link Road Resistance. There's the Hastings Alliance, which have been involved for years and years and years fighting this project in the courts. And then, as I said, the Combe Haven Defenders, they're on the ground, they're coordinating direct action, and they've got details on their website of the area, the current situation, the campaigns that are going on, maps, how to get there, what's needed at the camp, and everything. And they've also got Twitter and Facebook, so for anyone who's interested, get down to Combe Haven Defenders website and see what you can see. You can also put your mobile number, and they've got a pledge on their website, so they're asking people to pledge to support them.
Mm-hmm.
Great thing, even if people can't get down there, sign the pledge on the website.
Okay. Well, finishing off this discussion, is there any parting words that you'd like to leave with our listeners to encourage them?
Taking direct action to stop a road is the most empowering thing you can do. Just having been down there a few times in the last few weeks, just realising what a few individuals who are utterly committed to, just really want to stop a road being built. It's amazing how much news impact, how much the word has spread, how much political impact this has had, simply because a few people decided they were going to get in the way and they weren't prepared to move out of the way. They weren't going to be. It's actually not that hard, as we were saying earlier. The police are not being that heavy-handed. It really is possible to make a huge difference, and particularly in these next few days.
Self-organized.